Excited. Welcome to episode 1 of The Relaughables, starring Kirk Mike.
Very sad day.
What a day for you. Yeah, but you moved up a notch and funniest people in the world.
I guess that's fair, yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
speak for yourself, but yeah. No.
Good.
Yeah, oh man. I know you did it last night. I didn't get a chance to watch it yet.
Don't bother.
Oh, no?
We couldn't play any videos. It was a fucking disaster. Chris came on at the end.
Who?
Quantum Week Chris.
Oh, who better?
Offered his service. Like many shows reached out to like David Spade or Kevin
Right.
Nealon yesterday. We got Quantum Week Chris on.
To give his unique perspective on his years with Norm Macdonald on the road and stuff?
Yes.
Well, good.
Yeah.
Well, good. Okay. I texted Mike, and Mike knew about it, and obviously everyone was texting everyone. It's one of those, obviously we're talking about Norm, who died yesterday at 61. I wish I could have a do-over. Quantum Week Chris, it all comes back to him, did his SNL game a couple weeks ago. I don't think I mentioned Norm. And I don't think of, it's weird. He has one of these great oddball careers in history.
Yeah.
Where he never really fit in anywhere.
Nothing took off.
Yeah, and that's kind of, I think, a massive part to me of his appeal.
Right.
Like he could have, I wound up rewatching the Comedians in Cars with Seinfeld last night.
Yeah.
And he was talking about how his first job was a writer on Roseanne. Mm-hmm. And he went in there and was looking at the script and he was like, "This is like terrible." It's like the writer's like, "No, don't worry about it. They just laugh at these jokes." He's like, "But every single one of these jokes are going to bomb." He had no idea. I don't think he ever really watched that sitcom before. Sitcoms in a weird way.
Yeah, I think his career went exactly like how he wanted it for the most. Like obviously,
That's true.
He would have wanted his Netflix show to last longer, maybe,
right,
or the sitcom to last longer, or whatever. But I think he liked that people didn't really get him at times.
Correct. So I thought about him and where I would put him historically, just overall, and the person who he reminds me the most of, and I've used this other guy as an example of something I admired before, is actually Neil Young, who did whatever he wanted whenever he wanted. Like he would, if he had a big album, the next 3 albums almost would purposely be like non-commercial.
Right.
Or he would just like get obsessed with, like Neil Young's obsessed with, he's like Bobby Bacala. He's obsessed with like trains. Yeah. Like that's like an obsession of his. Like he gets, so he spends like years thinking about that, and then he goes and does some weird album. Then he has a hit, and then he tours, and then he doesn't, and it's like Norm did whatever he wanted. Like from a career, he never did something he didn't want to do.
Right.
Like, ever. Like I have to say, Simmons had one of his friends on, and I listened to it this morning. It was very good. And his friend was like, he would just like turn down stuff and be like, "No, I'm not a good actor. Like I don't want to be in this."
It's amazing how many clips there are. Like, you saw 10 million different clips of Norm yesterday, and he's a stand-up who didn't put a special out until 2011.
Right, exactly.
Like it's stunning how much footage there is of this guy.
Well, he was one of these guys. So for me, like the two biggest deep dives for comedians I would do on YouTube would be Rickles and Norm for years and years and years and years. So. There wasn't much I hadn't seen yesterday, I don't think. But it was good to see old ones that I hadn't seen in a while. Like I like uncomfortable stuff, like even the stuff with The View, which they played, which is very funny.
The Clinton thing?
Yeah, and like fucking Joy Behar, that asshole, supposed to be a comedian, is like literally trying to silence him.
Who's the murderer?
Yeah, right. It's great. He was amazingly unafraid. And if you had said to me, I think I was talking to my brother, and if you had said to me, "Hey, like a famous comedian would die yesterday and would have had cancer for 10 years and not told anyone," I think he would have been one of my first 3 picks.
The not telling anyone, for sure.
Yeah.
But that's the thing was, it was so like I said, it would be very sad, obviously, if Artie died.
Of course, but not shocking.
We're ready,
right.
Yeah. Whereas Norm, there was no inclination. In fact, like I was saying it last night, but oddly enough, I had tickets to see Norm October 9th in Boston. And for whatever reason, yesterday, something came up where Alba couldn't go.
Right.
And I asked the Warthog to go.
Oh,
and an hour later, I see fucking Tim Dillon tweet, "Norm was one of the greatest," and I'm like, what the fuck is this?
I can tell you what happened. So Warthog told his girlfriend, and the words Norm Macdonald went in her head, and just that poison killed him.
That really is. It all comes back to Mamma Mia.
He probably had they already have cancer till then. Yeah, just killed him in like an hour.
Oh, Norm.
Poor guy, another victim.
It never affected me until now.
Wench. Another one on her
kill
fucking
list.
Yeah. What was I going to say? So I watched that again last night. I remember watching it when it first came out, and I'm not saying I thought Norm Macdonald was sick. I remember thinking, he looks, as he would occasionally, look kind of bloated and not like super healthy. But I didn't. I mean, I'm not saying I knew anything, of course. But it was just, when you watch it now, you're like, but I mean. Yeah, look up who Simmons had on there, Dave, if you would. I forget the guy's name. He produced a lot of Norm stuff, knew him well. And so Simmons asked him, like, did you know? Guy's like, I had no idea. He's like, Sarah Silverman texted me this afternoon. She's like, did you know he had cancer? Like, no, almost nobody knew.
I guess Spade texted Stern the same thing and didn't.
Right. Yeah. It's like
Daniel Kellison.
Okay. Yeah. It was very good. But yeah. Oh.
Well, there were two clips I didn't see. Like, I had never seen until yesterday. And one was obviously, you wouldn't even think to notice it, really. Mm-hmm. It's a very interesting point that he's making, but you wouldn't think
cancer?
About cancer and dying with dignity and how people would look at your work differently. Like, I forget who he was talking about, but he said some guy had cancer while he was making this movie. And he said if he told everyone he had cancer, of course he would have won the Oscar that year. But he would rather get the attention for the movie being good, not for his cancer.
Yeah, and I do think as a comedian, right? And I think if he was you want to see him if he said, "Listen, I have cancer. This is I have 9 months to live," and he did a show in October. Like, it would not be the same.
No, he'd be getting 20-minute ovations.
Yeah, and it would be like, you'd be thinking, oh, what's going? Like, it would affect the entire show.
Right.
So I do admire that.
Yeah.
And I retweeted some passage from his book. Did you read his book?
Yes.
That's great.
Yeah.
I mean, it's perfect.
It's hilarious, too, because he calls it a memoir.
Right. It's perfect. And perfect Norma's last tweet was about Colin Morikawa at the British Open. Like, it's just perfect. And I don't know if that golf Twitter thing was another bit. I think maybe
or
it was.
Or he just loved golf.
I know, but I
never know.
But they were talking about, too, where he was like, he would lose thousands of followers, and like he almost enjoyed it. So I wonder if he just did that just,
For that reason?
Yeah, I don't know.
He knew it bothered people?
He was, to me, like a much more accessible, like, there was a little bit of Andy Kaufman, but way more accessible. There was a whole bunch of, I saw all the tributes coming in, and I never put this together. Seth Rogen's like, I ripped him off at the start of my career. It's like, you sure did. Like, when you think about it, like, it's the same exact delivery.
Well, I said Norm did Andy Kaufman better, like funnier than Andy Kaufman.
Yes, and I think he's in the Andy Kaufman movie, his memory serves. I think.
Is he?
I think he has like a small role. Maybe I'm wrong, but yeah. I could be wrong.
The other clip I had never seen.
Flint, I forget. Yeah.
Until he wasn't the Larry Flint.
That's what
People
it is.
versus
Okay.
Larry
Yeah, that's
Flint.
what it is. Yeah.
The other clip I hadn't seen until yesterday. You know who he was great with? Like, obviously Conan and Letterman. Everyone tweeted out. Your boy Dennis Miller.
Yes.
He has a ton of shit with.
Yep. I've watched a lot. I watched all that. They loved each other.
I listened to. I don't know what radio show Dennis Miller had.
He had like a political.
He had like a radio show on TV. It felt like he took calls.
But he also had like a radio show like on AM for.
Oh
like
yeah, he was
late,
syndicated.
Okay. Yeah, he had like a Rush kind of show.
I think he went up against Rush. I think they're at the same time. Yeah.
Okay, because he had Norm on once, and Norm was on the phone, and they're coming back from break. And Dennis Miller says, our guest today, you can check out it in Vegas. He's working on his one-man show, An Ode to Pauly Shore. Give him hell, Weasel. And Norm just goes, you weren't supposed to promote that
yet. Yeah, I saw Spade that had a picture of those three. They had done. And Norm also, was very religious, became very religious, like, towards the last half of his life, it seems.
Yeah.
And was, not a liberal.
No.
So I think some doors were closed to him, and we'll get to some people who I think turned their back on him a little bit too as the show goes on. But it's like I want to play some clips and just kind of laugh, but it's like a tribute show or something. But the guy is one of the 5 best.
He's the greatest.
Calling him a comedian is almost like a weird. It's strange. Like he's not like like Rickles was a comedian,
right?
He was like something else, and I don't know what the word is. He was sorry, Dave. Like there was this, like people write these books and do these documentaries and talk about how Bill Murray is this like. And to me, like Bill Murray is nothing compared to Norm Macdonald as a comedic figure. Like watch Bill Murray. Was he great in Ghostbusters?
Category. That's a good category though.
Yeah, but
where you're like, it's not. He's not like an actor or a comedian.
But he shows up at parties and stuff. But like watch him on Letterman and watch Norm on Letterman. There's no.
It's not even close.
There's a reason why Norm was the last stand-up ever on Letterman. He was Letterman's favorite stand-up ever. I think maybe
the only time he showed emotion, like he cried at the end of that.
That was kind of weird, but now I kind of understand it.
Right, it got me a little glassy-eyed yesterday.
Yes. What cut do you want to start with, Dave?
Well, I was just going to ask you: does it feel like obviously the typical situation? Somebody dies and we put him on a pedestal. Is there like? I don't know.
No, I would have said he was one of the greatest yesterday.
I probably, if you listen to the history of the show, I probably didn't mention enough how great I thought he was. But but this is what happens. He died, I think so now we say how great he was.
So that's my point. I think.
But if I'm trying to think of a comedian I really like, but not as much. If they died yesterday, I wouldn't be doing this today. So it is a moment to appreciate, and we probably didn't spend enough time talk about great is because he was purposely out of the mix. Like he didn't want to be around that much.
Yeah.
and
But oddly,
you never
he didn't want to be
booked-
around that much, but like the two voices I've listened to most in my entire life would be Jim Norton, because of the radio show probably,
Right.
and just the sheer amount of Norm clips on YouTube that I've watched and like fallen asleep to and shit.
Right.
Like I've heard his voice more than probably anyone in my life.
Yeah. Yeah. What do you say, Dave?
Well, I was just gonna say, I just don't. There's something about him that he was just like. I obviously appreciate all his work. Everything I watched yesterday was amazing, but I just wouldn't think of him. Like I wouldn't put him in a top 10 list if you just asked me off the cuff, because he's just kind of like a behind the scenes guy. Like I don't know how to word it. He just isn't like a big name in that world.
Well, who's funny? Like if Kevin Hart,
know.
I'll be honest. Like nothing
nothing
against the guy. If Kevin Hart died today, I wouldn't care. Like I'd feel bad for his family, but we'd spend 30 seconds on it.
No, I guess
he's
I'm
a much
asking,
big,
like,
he's a much bigger star, but you become a huge star by not being that good.
by selling out to
Well,
some
not
extent.
yeah, but just by not being like I don't know who the biggest like Ellen DeGeneres is worth $1 billion.
Right.
She's never made me laugh once in her life.
Yeah.
It felt like a rare day where the outpouring on Twitter and shit wasn't phony. You know what I mean? Like where the people, I mean, some of it was, I'm sure.
Well, it's
but
almost like a
Most of
collective-
the people tweeting loved Norm.
Right. It was almost a collective like, oh my fucking God, I didn't appreciate this guy enough.
So that's kind of what I mean.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
like he's just kind of an
Oh,
afterthought.
I'm guilty of that.
Unfortunately,
I'm guilty. Like, I mean, we talked about, I know Mike loved him. I would always,
Yeah.
I watch him on YouTube, but I didn't spend enough time because he was not really, relevant's not the right word, but he just wasn't around that much. And I think now, obviously, we know part of the reason why.
Right.
But yeah, he never, Simmons has said this, like, could he have done a year on Curb as like some role with yeah, sure.
Of course,
Yeah.
yeah.
But he didn't want to do stuff. Like he never really fit in that, like, look, I love Dirty Work. Like I saw Dirty Work in the theater. I think it's a fucking great, like it makes me laugh every time I watch it.
Yeah. I was just
But-
watching the prostitute in the trunk.
Oh, it's great. It's great. And the scene with Rickles is fucking unbelievable.
Yeah.
It's fucking unbelievable. And, and for me, like, in a weird way, Norm, we'll get to this a little more maybe later. Norm's biggest contribution to me, like, in a weird way, or top 3 or 4, is he brought Artie to Stern.
Yes.
Like,
Yeah.
Which
yeah.
is a massive, incredible. I saw Artie tweet that out yesterday, and,
Yeah.
amazing, like you said, Artie outlived Norm.
Bob Dole outlived Norm.
That's true, Bob Dole. That's
Crazy.
True. That's true. I mean, look
Yeah.
at Clint Eastwood's movie this weekend. He's still alive. And
Yeah.
Norm's, but I mean, Norm, but yeah, what clip do you have, Dave?
it's up to you. We have a ton of clips. You want to do the awkward Bill Clinton from The View situation?
No.
Yeah. You want to do the Kojak one that you liked? Do you
Do you have the what's the do the one from the other one from the Seinfeld one I sent you, the Cosby one? I love this.
He does that in his stand-up as
Yeah,
well. He doesn't
it's-
mention Patton Oswalt in the
Oh
stand-up.
no, it's
but-
so funny. How funny is that though? I sent it to you yesterday, right?
I don't think you sent me that. I got a different one. I don't know if this is the same one.
Do you think Cosby's
Yeah, this is it, yeah.
legacy will be hurt?
Yeah.
You do, huh? I mean, there was a comedian, Patton Oswalt, he told me, I think the worst part of the Cosby thing was the hypocrisy. And I disagreed.
You disagree with that?
Yeah. I thought it was the raping. That's my feeling. Most rapists are hypocrites. You don't meet many who go, I like raping, and I know it's not politically correct, but by God, people go, well, he's not being a hypocrite, and that's the worst part.
That's the worst part.
That's great. And how great is that?
In the stand-up bit, he goes, and second would be the drugging. And then there's the scheming. Anyways, I got a whole list.
But it's great the way he just set it up too, because the question's so absurd on its face. Think Cosby's legacy is, he just wants to tell the joke.
And Seinfeld goes, yeah, I think it will be.
We were talking before the show just about, like, obviously the OJ jokes on SNL.
Incredible.
How much did the SNL writers know? Like, they had to be rehearsed, right?
I wondered that too, because they do the rehearsal show, right?
Like,
Did
why would
just
he
not
get
read them?
fired over something that they knew was happening?
Well, but remember the show's live, first of all, and
Yep.
secondly, he was a big writer on that. Like I
Yes.
think he wrote. I don't know. I don't know the history of it completely, but Don Ohlmeyer he ran NBC. He was a very good friend of OJ's. OJ worked at NBC, of course. So during the whole thing, they tried their best to put the lid on OJ stuff. Now, meanwhile, Leno has like dancing Edos and all that shit on the Tonight Show. I'm not sure why that was permissible, but anyway. So Norm is telling the joke after he got. You want to play a couple, Dave, or no?
Thanks, I'm Norm Macdonald, and now the fake news. Well, it is finally official. Murder is legal in the state of California.
But I think Dave's point is did he just not do that in rehearsals?
I don't know.
But there's 30 of these. There's probably more. There's probably 50.
It became
Right.
You're right. It became like a crazy. I want to find the one. Let me see. But I mean, that's just So Ohlmeyer's running NBC at the time. Here it is. Another joke. OJ Simpson was in a different kind of courtroom this week, attempting to regain custody of his 2 children. In order to prove to the court how much he loves his kids, OJ pointed out, quote, "Hey, they're still alive, aren't they?"
They said there was some accusation that OJ was on speed the night of the murders.
Right.
And he said his attorney Johnny Cochran denied these claims and said, "Just test the blood that was found at the crime scene."
When Simpson trial juror Gina Rodborough returned home this week, her little girls were delighted to have her back. And no wonder. She lets him get away with murder.
So Ohlmeyer ran NBC and had a pretty strict edict. Now, I think part of this, I think if you said to me, who's the most interesting character in the whole Ohlmeyer Norm Macdonald saga, it's actually Lorne Michaels.
Right.
Because I think Lorne Michaels, who still had a semi-rebellious streak at that point, probably let Norm get away with a lot of it, but then ultimately wasn't able to save him.
Yeah, I always wonder about that shit with Lorne, because it seems like he's on the side. Like Shane Gillis gives him a ton of credit for kind of being on his side during that whole process. But
he's been around but he's also knows how to play the game.
Yeah.
And then when Norm, Norm kind of famously broke the news he got fired on Letterman.
Right.
And said, he was like, I don't blame him. Like they told me to stop, and I didn't stop. So I kind of get why they fired me. Like he didn't really kill Ohlmeyer all that much, but yeah, I mean, he was going on there telling these jokes, which were perfectly like, it's wild to think the president of NBC was telling them not to tell jokes about. It's hard to articulate how big the OJ trial was for people who weren't around for it.
Yeah.
But like, it was the biggest thing ever. So like, he has to be telling those jokes.
So I guess maybe to answer your question, why could Leno do dancing? I don't know what that is.
A little more innocent.
Well, that's what I mean. Where Leno's not saying OJ is guilty.
Right.
Where I think Norm did nothing but that.
Correct. Do you have any other ones, Dave?
A down-and-out O.J. Simpson, depressed that all of his money-making ideas have failed, has decided to go back to doing what he does best, killing people. O.J. Simpson's lawyers have decided to skip hearings on DNA evidence and go right to trial. Asked why they did this, the lawyers replied, "We want to get O.J. acquitted as speedily as possible so he can get back to doing what he does best, killing people."
He's just the best.
And so much of his so much of it with him is delivery and the voice and I mean, like if another comedian tells that joke, it's not as funny.
Oh, well, I mean, what he did on Conan for the last 10 years was tell old-timey jokes and drag them out as long as he could.
Right. Yeah. He just got obsessed with like weird stuff. It's such a big mind. He was so smart. He was too smart really for like entertainment business.
Yeah. And I remember was it kind of a note. I remember Conan's last week he didn't have Norm on, and I was like, that's fucking weird. Yeah. And now I'm assuming this is probably why.
Probably why. I saw Conan tweet about it right away. I mean, obviously all the big names tweet about Howard Stern didn't, but a lot of the are huge, nor did the show show anything from it. I mean,
they got there eventually.
Yeah, okay, but
after a long, very arduous segment.
Very strange.